Hospital Porter's Pride and Dignity Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. Right, well, this is the second part of my series of films about ghosts and about ghostly goings on in my life. I'm actually in a bedroom. It's not my own bedroom. It's a bedroom that I used to sleep in many years ago. Excuse me. I used to sleep in many years ago, and someone else is living here now, friends of mine, and they very kindly allowed me to film in here. This room has changed. This bed wasn't there at the time, and what happened was in 1996, something strange happened. This was a few years later than the incident I told you about in the last film. And as you know, if you've watched the film Ghosts in the Park, you will know that I had a supernatural encounter in a park in the early hours of a morning in January, some years before 1996, and my girlfriend at the time shared this experience with me, and she dumped me as a result too. Oh dear, that was sad, as I explained. I tell you what though, I was quite glad to get out of that jogging. I don't miss that at all. Silvery lining, you know. Anyway, back to 1996. I was sleeping here one night. It was a pleasant night. I was sleeping well, and I woke suddenly in the sort of early hours, middle of the night, 3 to 4 a.m. Between that sort of 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock time, what Roald Dahl calls the witching hour. And I woke very suddenly from a dream and sat up in bed, and to my astonishment, I saw there was a small boy kneeling on the floor by my bed. He was a boy. You could make out his shape, but he was kind of translucent. There was no colour to him, and he was translucent, and he looked as if he were kind of made of smoke, quite similar to the horses I saw. He's kind of about, the bed was sort of along there, and the boy was sort of in this area, though you can't see it now because it's underneath the bed. He was like smoke that keeps its shape. That's the best way to describe it. He was kneeling with his hands together like that, as if he was saying his prayers. I didn't feel frightened at all or anything like that. I felt kind of, oh wow, oh, what's this sort of thing? You know what I mean? There was no fear or no shock. There was a bit of surprise, but no shock. No, it's a ghost! There was none of that. No, he just sat, probably for about half a minute, he just sat there, and I sat there watching him. And then he drifted up into the air slowly, levitated, and started to drift away towards the far corner of the room here. This far corner here. And as he did so, he turned and looked at me. And he looked me straight in the eye, and we made eye-to-eye contact. And he slowly faded away. And that was one of the most remarkable experiences I've had, actually, in ghostly terms. What did I see? I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, there's no independent witnesses to this event. I can't prove it wasn't completely in my head. And there is such things as a hypnopompic experience. And this is what happens. I mean, you may have experienced this. Is when you're having a dream, you wake up, and your dream continues in your waking state for a short time after you wake up. This was portrayed very well, actually, in the horror film The Company of Wolves, where a girl is having a dream, a nightmare. She wakes up, and the nightmare continues for a few seconds after she's woken up. That's a hypnopompic experience. I can't prove that that's not what I had. But it could have been something else. It could have been I was in that state of consciousness that allowed me to perceive other worlds. My own theories about ghosts, which I explain in that article I posted in the description box in the Ghosts in the Park film, is that what we call ghosts may actually be several different phenomena. a kind of a syndrome, of phenomena which are not necessarily related to each other. Only we believe they're related to each other. In the same way that dolphins and whales look like fish, but they're not fish. They're actually not related to fish at all. They're mammals. They're more closely related to us. In the same way, various different ghostly phenomena might actually be different things, completely unrelated. Some of them, I think, might possibly be what I've termed bleedovers. They're bleedovers of reality from other dimensions, parallel universes. It's as if, I mean, even serious scientists talk about this, that they're parallel universes, and sometimes they merge. And if you're in the right state of mind and your brain is tuned to the correct frequency, you can actually perceive elements of these other dimensions. It's quite possible, these things, there can be contact within hyperspatial realms between different 3D linear time planes. Sorry if I'm talking physics babble, all right? I'm being completely pretentious. I'm not a scientist. I'm just I'm bluffing. Don't worry. What I mean is these imagine the universes as kind of sheets, membranes. They call it membrane theory, and they sort of come together like that, and they're drifting around across hyperspace. And suddenly they just touch, and they merge slightly. Now there's a very good horror film, actually, extremely frightening horror film, which horror film should be, of course. It wasn't frightening; it would be a pretty poor horror film. But this one is particularly scary because it is actually plausible. It's one of these horror films that could possibly come true, and it's called The Mist. And I'll post a review in the description box, The Mist, because I did a review of the film. It's about this kind of this opening of a stargate or gap between the dimensions, which allows physical objects from other dimensions to come into this one. And it's quite possible, that some ghosts are physical. I mean, ghosts, there's another myth about ghosts is, they're etheric. Most of them are sort of etheric and they don't seem to have any solid substance. But there are people who've touched ghosts. There's people who've shaken ghosts' hands. So, what I could have seen, what this boy I saw on this floor, not far from where I'm sitting now in this room in 1996, could have been a kind of bleed over from another dimension. He was cloudy and he was fuzzy and indistinct because he was not part of this world. He was part of another world, and a part of his presence merged with this world briefly. Cloudy, made of smoke, etheric. He turned and looked at me, and our eyes met, and he definitely saw me. I could sense that he was looking at me. And maybe, the cloudy, sort of smoke-like way I perceived him, that could be how he saw me. Maybe in his world things look solid, and for him, it's our world that looks smoky and indistinct and transparent and translucent. Yeah. Straight, I will never ever forget that. What happened to me in this room all those years ago, about 15 years ago. Absolutely remarkable. Well, on to the next place, and I'll let you know what else I've seen and what other strange things I've experienced in other places. There's more to come. Thanks for watching Herpanwo TV. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, stop the New World Order.